ahead and start the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to record to this computer.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everybody to the November edition of the Tips and Tricks SIG. As usual, our format tonight will be our open forum, go to the topics that I had sent out. We can cover any of those or anything else that comes up, followed by a wrap up, and that would be it for the evening. So, who would like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening? Okay, we got 6 of us. We got no questions. I think this is
if
great.
nobody else, I'll ask. I've got a PC that I built about 6 years ago. A mini PC, and it says I've got Windows 10 Pro on it, but of course it says that it's not compatible. But yet I pull up BillArc Advisor, and it says that boot mode is UEFI, secure boot likely not supported by this UEFI.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
That might be a BIOS setting to turn on the secure boot. Usually there's, in most BIOS, 3 settings for going into secure boot or having a legacy where you would plug in, say, a live Linux flash drive and be able to boot up Linux off of it. But more and more of the Linuxes will accept the UEFI conditions and boot up anyhow. But I usually find that one of the 3 critical ones for UEFI in the BIOS is not set on. If you turn it on, that might disappear. But the age of your machine makes me suspicious as to what generation CPU chip you have.
Well, I'll tell you what I've got. I've got an Intel Core i3 4370.
Yeah, forget it. That alone disqualifies you from 11. You got to have 8 or higher.
So it could be like an i3 or i5 or i7.
Yeah. Well, no, there's i3s. In fact, I think it's more FY issue 2512 or 2513. The second and third articles are listings of Intel and AMD chips that will support the TPM in an awkward fashion through the CPU chip. You don't have to have the plug on the motherboard, which is only for desktops. True desktop.
Our point about 7th gen doesn't mean Core i7. It means 7th generation.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yours is a 4th generation.
Right.
Oh, what the 4 stands for.
Yeah.
47.
That first number after the dash is the generation number.
Okay.
If there's only 3 numbers after the dash, that's the very first generation.
No, that's got 4 digits.
Yeah, that's normal for the vast majority. So you got to have some 8s. Actually, there's more chips that are supported, even in i3s, in Celerons, Pentiums. I think there was even some Atoms, if I remember right, off that article list.
There were Atoms, but it's possible that with 22H2, those Atoms may drop out.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised because there ain't enough horsepower there. Celerons really don't have enough horsepower. You got to have a Pentium or better. And Pentium is very lightweight. And an i3 would probably go pretty good. And when it comes to CPU chip updates, Usually the motherboard in a computer only handles 2 generations, and then
Right.
you cannot upgrade it. You have to change motherboards.
That was my next question. Could I upgrade to a newer CPU on my ASUS
Let me
motherboard?
stop for a second. Third, fourth. Since it's a fourth, I would bet no. I think it's Gen 3 and Gen 4 that are compatible on a motherboard. As soon as you want to go to Gen 5 and 6, you got to have a new motherboard. Then 7, no, I take that back. Gen 4, you could upgrade to a Gen 5. Gen 6, Gen 7 is a new motherboard. Gen 8, Gen 9 is a new motherboard.
Okay,
In short, no, you can't do it.
so I need to replace not only the CPU but the motherboard.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if this is a one that you could match up a board to fit in there, which is a good luck statement, go for it. But I say good luck because it's not just the board; it's where the output ports go in
Right.
relationship to the chassis that you're going to put it into. If it's a mini like a Nook style, their location are the USB ports and the VGA port and all that's part of the motherboard. In those cases, it's got to fit in a certain spot.
Right.
So in short, Wayne,
Okay.
it's an exercise that you could go down for the fun of it. But I would just leave it at Windows 10 at the best.
Right. I
And
concur.
dedicate it to a specific thing or donate it to charity.
Or you can also put Linux on it, but you can do that later at some point in time.
I already have Linux on my laptop, on my
That's
old
fine.
laptop.
Well, it's up to you what you do with it. I'm just saying. You can put Linux there and it'll work just fine. Not
You
a
could
joke.
turn it into another Linux machine, or you could make it into a little mini server.
And
If it's a mini PC, if you will, if it's a mini PC, they're usually low power consumption, similar
Right.
to a laptop that is.
right.
Those are perfect to set up as an IoT device or a little mini server, a local storage device,
Right.
anything
A
along
media server, media.
a media server. Exactly, it's perfect for it. A place for you to store all your pictures.
And besides
Wait.
that, you
But like the one behind you, you took of that ship. You
uh,
got it somewhere instead of on your phone.
Question,
now see the
what
thing.
does the Linux machine do for me?
What's a Linux machine do for you? Well, let's hold on before we go down that road.
Yeah.
Down that rabbit hole.
Wayne, I'm sorry, Wayne Pritzel. We got two Waynes here. So Wayne 1, Wayne 2. Okay. And which is the first Wayne and which is the second Wayne? And I don't know. So anyways, Wayne Pritzel, Mr.
Wayne
Pritzel.
A, Wayne P and Wayne A.
Okay, Wayne P.
Yeah.
Did we finish discussing your discussion?
Well,
I'm
what I
just
was
gonna-
going to put in there was you'll have to buy a new unit, and you'd want to anyhow because the new unit would have M.2 SSD capabilities.
Mhm.
Not a joke.
Okay, but back to Wayne. Did we answer your question?
Yeah, I'm gonna use it until 2025 or whatever, so
Okay.
Yeah.
it'll
Sounds
probably
like a plan.
it'll outlast me anyway.
Good.
And if it doesn't, you can always go over to Linux.
Which I have on my laptop.
Yeah, but this other one
you
can do it too.
I got multiple
only have
Linuxes.
one version of Linux. There's many flavors out there.
Yeah.
And on the Linux SIG, they could talk you through on being able to put in a different flavor of Linux.
He's usually in the Linux group. Now,
Yeah.
the other Wayne, that's a different story.
Wayne A. Go ahead.
As to the other Wayne, you asked about the Linux. Generally speaking, it's not for everyone. Okay, it is getting much, much better, but Windows and Mac OS were designed to ease people into the computer and gradually build up their knowledge to be able to really get productive use out of them. Linux has an opposite curve. You have to have a fair amount of knowledge, and as time passes, things get easier and easier. But it is a third OS available for people who do not want to go from 10 to 11 or can't because of old hardware.
All right. It's, as long as you're talking about 11, there's an upgrade on 11.
I hope so.
Is that, do you recommend doing it?
It depends upon you. How adverse are you to change?
Whatever we need.
Well, if you're not too adverse, do you have 10 now?
I've got 11 on this machine.
Oh, if you got 11, go ahead and upgrade to 11. It was a pretty easy update offhand. I do recommend a full image backup before you do the upgrade. You never know when things are going to go wrong, because in PCs, the number of manufacturers and the variety of hardware out there drives Microsoft nuts with all the headaches they have. So some people are going to have a problem anytime an update of any kind comes out. Even Apple, with its restrictions, has some headaches. What can I tell you?
Yeah, for most hardware, I would also agree that it's probably safe to do the 22H2 update, but not without a full backup, I wouldn't.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And if you're more interested in learning a little bit about Linux, and mind you, it'll take you a while to get a grasp of it at all. November 29th, we'll have the Linux SIG meeting, and then there won't be one until January.
Mm-hmm.
I also have from APCUG a couple videos and their handouts that's for beginners. If you're interested, you can email me and I'll get back to you with the video links and the attachments.
Well, I probably don't need Linux, so
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just wonder why you revert to it in your conversations from time to time.
There are some systems on which Windows is no longer able to upgrade. There are some systems on which Windows any upgrade of Windows would start to get really, really slow. There are some systems that just don't have the resources. They don't have the horsepower.
Right.
Many distros of Linux will work quite nicely on those systems.
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep an old system going longer. That's the main reason people do it, except for people like me who do it because we like the freedom. We like not having it dictated to us how things go. But if you're going to be more adventurous, you're going to have a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fairly steep.
Yes,
It can be at first.
It can be. Yes, it can be. I'm not knocking it down. I'm just saying it is.
Yes.
It is.
I don't make any
steep
bones about it, flat out. But there are some versions of Linux now where you can run it in a Windows style mode and never touch command line. But the command line exists in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, and that's where a lot of horsepower and tools are available that there is no graphical version of.
Yeah, but even if you go all graphical, it will feel different for a while.
Yes.
It will feel different.
Yes.
But it's kind of like, I would put it as the difference between Apple iOS on a phone and an Android phone.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
to some
in
extent.
a broad brush
Yes.
statement,
Okay.
whereas on Apple, you're restricted. This is what you could do, you can't do, and that's kind of it. On Android, you can do almost anything you want. And that's kind of like Linux and Windows, although Windows you can really do anything you want. But
Well,
I believe in Linux you can do anything you want. And there's
well,
an app, there's something written for whatever it is you want to do.
Well, let's put it
and-
this way. In Linux, you can do anything you want, but it may break something.
That's right. And the other thing is that Android is a customized version of Linux.
Yes.
Oh,
It's pared down, it's simplified.
can you give me an example of what you might want to modify, do in Linux that you couldn't do in the regular systems, Windows 10 or 11?
Like I say, there is some hardware that just simply no longer runs Windows well. And it just doesn't have, you can't even do Windows 11 on some older hardware. Another thing you might want is some people like me are kind of cheap and we want to do everything free. And while you can make donations to places, you don't have to pay. The amount you pay is what you decide. If you're used to using paid software, the paid software may have a slicker interface. It may be easier for you to use, but the trade-off with something free is you may have to work a little harder on it.
Gotcha.
But once you do decide you want to put out the effort, you can customize any piece of software in Linux if you want to learn how.
And for example, another thing that differentiates them, the look and feel of Windows or Mac OS is pretty set and standard. They give you a little bit of a capability to adjust your desktop to something more likable by each individual. In Linux, there's more than 18 different desktops you can try out, from very lightweight desktops for real old hardware, and then you have all the way up to heavyweights like Windows. So you have quite a wide variety of stuff, lots of customization, and there's a lot of people that in Linux world like that feature, but it doesn't exist in Windows and Mac OS.
Yeah, I'm from the point of view of what is known as ergonomics or accessibility, you have a lot more options in Linux than you do in Windows or Mac. But if you like the consistency of the interface in Windows, or especially in Mac, which has a very consistent interface, where you always know where everything's going to be, there aren't buttons on the left in one program, on the right in the other program, then you're going to like the consistency that you're used to, and you might just as well stick with Windows or Mac.
Though there are some Linux desktops that look exactly like Windows or exactly like a Mac OS.
Right. You have to do a little research to find them, but yes, there are.
Yes.
But again, the applications in Linux won't always follow what the desktop looks like and feels like. Whereas in Windows or Mac, especially Mac, they rigidly follow the same feel, the same look, the same placement of objects.
Yes.
And for many people, that's very much preferable.
Well, I primarily use the machine for Word, Excel, and SolidWorks. I don't really deviate too much from that.
Word, Excel, and what else?
SolidWorks, it's a graphics program.
It's like a CAD program.
CAD program, yeah.
Yeah, in Linux, the CAD programs can be a little different.
Yeah, okay.
And the availability is quite a bit different in Linux from what it is in Windows. So if you have a CAD program or a specific kind of graphics program, and it runs under Windows, and you don't find that the same program runs under Linux, you will probably not want to take up Linux.
Right.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
if that's
more for the fun of it.
but if that's not an issue for you, then there are graphics programs in Linux that are quite capable.
Mhm.
There is Photoshop. There isn't Photoshop, but there is the GIMP. There is Photox, which is only Linux, and there are various others. Krita is another one.
Probably the farthest I've deviated from the standard software is doing batch files for custom stuff on graphics. Such as making it where you can pick a certain amount of drawings, and then it'll automatically print those drawings all night long. So when you come back in the morning, it's done and it's neat, stuff like that. And I don't do that anymore because I'm not working for a company now.
Oh, well, if you were still doing that, you would have to stick with Windows because that would be specific to that particular hardware and software environment.
Okay.
But if you're no longer doing that, but you're still interested in that sort of thing, there might be Linux alternatives.
Gotcha.
I think even for what Pete does with makers, there are Linux alternatives, there are Windows alternatives, and there are Mac.
And they can get you in a lot of trouble,
So what? You're used to
which is
trouble.
one thing I'm going to discuss a little later.
Oh, there could be some problems. You got a problem with something? Anyway, let's finish this one and then see what Pete's problem is.
All right, I think we've covered that discussion. Does anyone else have any topics or questions they'd like to propose to the group?
I had the comment about I wanted to increase the size of text. And I found that using the text size feature of Windows worked better than the scaling of the entire picture.
Okay, well,
I think I moved to 1, 2, 3 from 100.
okay,
I got the size of the icons and the text and everything where I was very happy with it.
oh, good, good.
I just wanted to mention it because you had given some alternatives last time I was on the Zoom.
Yeah, those were the two possibilities.
Mhm.
Either you were going to do a font change or a font size change, or you were going to scale.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Pete, what's going on at Makerspace out there?
It's not the makerspace. I'm assisting a Christian academy with an after-school program for Arduino and programming. And, okay. Currently, I've got 6 through high school kids. We only got a really small class. This came up over the last week, whereas I've got 2 PCs here at the house. One that I built separately just for the Arduino class, and I put the latest version of Arduino on there. And when I moved it to the USB drive to bring it to school, it wouldn't load in because we're using an older version, older being 2 months ago version of Arduino. And they did an upgrade, and I managed to do a workaround by using a text editor and doing a copy and paste because I had a text file with the code in there, so I could do that. So that's my one issue. The other issue is now that I've found that problem with the code differences on my 2 machines, and the code is different between the machine I'm talking to you guys on and development machine I've got in the other room. Because I didn't upgrade the code here, so I'm going to have to put the code, make the code for the class on this machine here. I discover that half the class uses Apple at home. And the Apple files going across on a USB get changed. And the version of Arduino on Apple seems to be slightly different. I don't have anything that I can make the Apple code on. The school is using all Windows boxes, and we actually put the code on the boxes, and they can use the drives. But I got a couple drives back, and they wouldn't go directly into the Windows box because the Apple took over the OS on the drive. So now I'm trying to, going forward, I'm trying to figure out, do I got to lock out the Apple people, which is half the class, or do I have to provide them with a Windows-based, a cheap Windows-based machine to go home so they can work on it at home?
I recall something in the last 3 months I came across. It was something that I'm remembering, but I wasn't interested myself. But basically, for a flash drive, you can set up a dual boot OS of the flash drive with a common data area. So it's like 3 partitions. You have an Apple partition, a Windows PC partition, and you have a data partition. The data partition is in a format that allows both OSs to access it.
That sounds extremely interesting, but the flash drives they're using are currently in their possession.
I understand that. You would have to have like a class to set everybody's flash drive up so that they work in both environments.
Okay, or I would have to call them in and do it myself.
Yeah, one way or the other. I mean,
these are some of these guys are 6th graders.
I understand. The other thing that I have a question on myself, and that is why you're doing the Arduino controllers, microcontrollers. My nephew's into robotics, and he didn't like how slow Arduinos were. He uses a different controller, and it's about the same in pricing from what I gather.
The reason we were doing the Arduino is because that was what the 2 instructors, myself and somebody else, was comfortable with on the startup.
Okay.
And this is a first generation trial with this group. They don't have any history. It's a small private school. It covers K through 12. I think the class sizes for any particular grade is in the 5 to 15 level of students. So it's a really small school, not a lot of budget money. I've been trying to play around with ESP32s because that would give more functionality, and we may actually go over to that. That's also capable to be used on the Arduino IDE. So at least we wouldn't have to change the thing. I've been looking at the ZOD IDE, which is a graphical IDE for Arduino, but it doesn't have the support for the full ESP32s. ESP32s are in the same price range, but they've got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and low power Bluetooth, and the availability of putting in LoRa for doing long range IoT. But the IoT port, the LoRa for ESP32s is not fully developed in the ZOD, the graphical one.
Okay.
We're playing around with the whole class. It's an after school thing, so it's like more like a club than it is anything else.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, that's it. As I'm listening to more and more YouTube videos, getting my data knowledge back and fresh, I'm seeing a 32 would probably have been a better choice right off the bat. Because it costs, even with the 32 with the camera is like $10 a crack.
Well,
And then
my
you could have
nephew,
set
in robotics, he liked the better speed, and it was about the same on everything else aside from that.
Yeah. The 32 is a dual core 32-bit
Okay.
processor, so it's way faster. It's a way nicer processor. It's got more RAM on board than the Arduino is now going on 15 years, I think.
Could be.
Something along those lines, 10 to 15 for when it first came out.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But I was comfortable with that because I've done some stuff on it, and I didn't want to go to Pi with 6-year-olds, with 6th graders, I mean.
Yeah.
Good choice.
You don't trust him?
No, it's
It's
not
not that I
trust.
don't trust
It's
them.
just trust. It's just you
It's
don't want
slow
to.
enough getting them. I had to get the Fritzen myself because to lay out the class so that the point-to-point wiring with the jumpers is the same for their hardware. I had to modify anything I could find that was on the internet because everybody's using slightly modified either sensors or something else that's different.
Okay.
So I ended up doing 2 hours of Fritzen last week to bring a single drawing into work into the class to make sure that they can follow the paper rather than the 3 different versions that are on the internet. And it makes life in the classroom go way better if I do the homework. But now I know why teachers have to go through all the problems in class prep. And I remember that from Hunter Safety. Whereas it takes about 10 hours of class prep for every hour of teaching.
Prep.
I have high respect for teachers.
Good. Pay them more.
I wish we could,
Okay. Shall we move on to a new topic?
unless somebody else has got some other hints for me.
Who's supplying
Silence is gold.
Who's supplying the hardware? The Arduinos.
The initial Arduinos were purchased by the school.
How
They
many of
spent
them?
about $100 per kit with the Arduinos, the wires. I laid out a custom one for the class.
And do
I
they
could
become property? They stay with the school, or they move on with the kid?
Currently, they're staying with the school
Okay.
because they didn't want to charge the kids.
Got it. Is this a pilot program?
This is version 1.0.
So it's a pilot program. It's
It's
first
a
time
pilot program.
pilot program. Okay. Got it.
I'm hoping to do some a soldering class during the intersessions.
Ooh,
That's not a
you gonna
big
do
deal.
cold solder?
What?
You're gonna do cold solder? You don't want these kids touching hot soldering irons and
You
burning
know what?
themselves.
I in Makers, we had 10-year-olds soldering surface mount Christmas cards. So I'm not. I know you can do it. I know you can do it safely. You just got to be very. And there's only 5 in the class right now.
Got it.
I can handle that. I can handle way larger than that. But
Okay. Any other comments from anybody else? We now know what's going on out in the far western reaches of the hemispheres.
it's darn hot out here.
It's hot out there?
It's hot out here.
Oh, you poor guys. My heart breaks for you.
After
See,
tomorrow,
the kicker is what?
after tomorrow, the 48 continental states are all going to be in the deep freeze, all the way down to Florida.
I'd heard that this coming winter, the east of the Mississippi River is going to be warmer than normal, and west of the Mississippi is going to be considerably colder.
I'm way west of the Mississippi, and I'm not going to get colder.
All right, we're gonna go. We're getting out of topic here, so let's
Go back to computer.
Let's stay on topic here. Okay. Any other unless someone wants to talk about a new satellite that's going up or some
Oh, one
other
of my kids is trying to do some the CubeSats.
CubeSat. Okay.
You heard of them?
Yes.
How's the lack of supply of chips for cars? Has that gone away now, or are they still short?
Well, that'll be the chip for cars short. The chip shortage is going to be around us for a number of years.
Oh, okay.
It's not going away. Cars are only part of the problem.
Yeah, they got to build new plants here in the United States alone, and that takes a few years to get those up and running.
Is there a chip shortage for PCs?
No, actually, sales in PCs have gone down the tank since the main pandemic is over. I guess during the pandemic, people were trying to get anything and everything they could get their hands on, and PC sales went way up. Now they're going back down.
Yeah.
And graphic cards and GPUs are now getting very cheap because people are getting out of crypto.
Well, they ain't cheap enough because they're still advertising like the 4090 card, which melts a lot of cables for power, are still $1,600.
Well, it may take a while for it to filter up to that level, but just standard GPU pricing has begun to come down.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The price of electricity has made crypto mining not exactly profitable.
Well, it's not just that. The price of crypto has cratered. So it's at the tail end of it that people don't have the incentive any longer. So anyway, that affects chip availability, but not the kind they use in cars.
Yeah, the part of the problem with the cars is that our major manufacturers didn't change the versions of the chips as they rebuilt cars. They're still using the old technology ones.
Yep.
For the inner ones, and the foundries don't want to make those chips.
They're not as generally as profitable as some of the other chips that they're making.
Right.
The bad part is they're still needed in mass.
I have another comment or question. You have the i3, 5, 7, and then you got the 9, and you got the Xeon processor. Is the 9, how does that group work together?
Let's put it this way, an i9 and even to some extent the i7 are mostly for gamers. They have very high power, but a Xeon processor is for workstation people, scientists, technicians, and even possibly into CAD type drawings and stuff like that. Movie editing, especially for movie sets and movie studios, would probably use Xeon type processors. Get the horsepower.
Mhm. Now, what is the i9 for?
The which one?
i9.
i9 is mostly for gamers. I mean, it's a very expensive processor. There's tons of horsepower. It doesn't mean that you can't get a gamer's class machine and use it for non-gaming. Quite the contrary. Sometimes it's best to get a gaming class machine, a reasonable processor with it, and gain a lot of processing capability that a non-gaming system identical to it would not have. But a 9, for most people, an i5 is a general purpose. An i3 is a low end system for lightweight users. Pentium and Celeron are going to be combined together, just called Intel Core. That's the new labeling. And those are extremely lightweight. I wouldn't use anything but a Pentium in that class. Celeron just does not have the horses. When you get into a 9, usually you are talking a system that has anywhere between 1 and 2,000 watt power supply, 1 or 2 high-end graphic cards that run anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 each.
Good Lord.
That's a gamer's machine. That's a high-end gamer's machine. But you can use it for anything that really requires super horsepower and speed.
Imagine, Wayne, one of your SolidWorks projects, it usually takes it 5 minutes to render, could be done in 30 seconds.
I gotcha. Now, the next question is on the Celeron processor. Are there 3-step sizes in those?
There's quite a wide variety of Celeron processors. They aren't worth it. You're better off.
Excuse me, I meant Xeon processors.
Xeon processors have quite a few families themselves, but
Is it similar to 3, 5, and 7?
No.
no, it
I don't
doesn't
think so.
go that route. They have different numbering.
Aren't Xeons basically like a business class Pentium processor?
Yes.
I don't
Well,
know
no,
how
not Pentium.
Yeah, Xeons were that. They were mostly put in the servers.
Yes.
Which is what I have in my server.
Right.
Basically, it's the way I see it is a Xeon would be a processor that is designed thermally and functionally to run 24/7.
Right. It's a workstation class.
It's a
or
workstation.
server.
I had a Dell Tower PC that had a Xeon processor, and the only reason I gave it up is because it could not take Windows 10. Wasn't it Windows 10 or Windows 11?
Probably
Where they had
11.
it? 11. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
wouldn't have given it up for that. I'd give up Windows 11.
No, I bought a smaller tower with i7, and upgraded to 11, and I'm very pleased with the way it operates.
Oh yeah, I've got an 8th gen i7 that I can't believe how fast that thing is running. And I let it set for a couple of years because I was so damn busy with so much other stuff going on. I forgot about the damn thing. And I
Somebody
only,
was telling me that I overshot the target when I went to Zeon, that an i7 would have done a better job.
well, wait a
All I
minute.
can remember is all through the 5 or 6 or 7 years I used that machine, it never let me down. It went like a bat out of hell.
That's right. And especially with that CAD type programming, that's right up the alley of a Xeon system. Now, the age of your Xeon was part of the problem. It's too old. If you got a newer version,
I think it was a 2013.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
had something more like 2017 to 2019, you have a shot at 11 on it.
Okay.
Wayne, are you thinking of upgrading your current box?
Me?
Yes, you, Wayne A.
No, I've got a 3043 Dell with an i7 in it, and it does my AutoCAD or my SolidWorks very well. But most of the time, I spend an awful lot of time on Excel and Word, and I'm very pleased with the way it's operating. But I just don't have the feeling that it was over. It's like having a powerful diesel engine in your car that you don't really need what it's capable of doing,
Yeah,
but its normal performance is very nice.
if most of your stuff is the Word and Excel and very little CAD drawing anymore, an i5 would have probably been just fine as well.
One closing question I have with Windows 11, I guess, 10 or 11, is there any type of quick notes that I can paste on the desktop when I'm working along and all of a sudden I want to make a little list of things I want to do? I want to be able to, in the corner, and type it out and not have it disturb the program I'm working on.
Go down
have
to your
Notepad.
Start button, go in the apps menu list down to the S's, and you have in there sticky notes, and they work like the real 3M product sticky notes that you stick all over everything. This just works on the desktop.
Oh, okay. Sticky notes.
Yep.
Is there, how do you fire it up and bring
You just
it online?
go down to the apps menu there to the S's. You see sticky notes. Click on it. It'll launch.
Okay. Can I take, let's see, I don't quite remember now. Can I take and make an icon on my screen so I don't have
Yes,
to
you
go to the
can.
menu?
You can. Once you got it up and running, you can right-click the icon down on the taskbar and select Pin to Taskbar, and it'll stay there on the taskbar.
Okay. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, any more questions?
I can't think of anything else.
Oh, good, good. But I know you will, which is why you're here, Wayne.
All I
Okay.
can say, Sanford, is same old, same old.
Same old, same old. That's right. Something. Okay, let's move on. I do want to know, Wayne, do you still have your regular clients still wanting you to do work for them?
No, not really.
Not really. So you're just having fun with this now.
I'm just playing.
You're just playing. Okay. All right. Shall we move on to our topics of the evenings? I sent out a list of topics that we could have fun and have fun. We're all gonna woo. We're gonna go through. Anyone have a topic in there that they'd like to have us discuss?
I think you ought to discuss the second one.
Okay, let's see. What is the second one? Let me pull it up first myself. The second one.
It
How do
comes
I
up.
change my email address?
Yes, this
That
comes
one?
up periodically.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, I just went through that and I'm still dealing with it. So let's see what Ask
Well, there's another
Leo.
member that is possibly facing the same thing. He got hacked though.
And I could understand that. That would be, I mean, that was one of the reasons I moved away from my old email address because that one got hacked. And luckily, I was the only one receiving the spam and not other people, I hope, that were receiving spam with my name affiliated with it. But, and the company I was dealing with, they don't care about your accounts and they allowed it to actually to happen multiple times. So, let's see what the discussion has to say.
I have one more thought.
Yes, what's the thought?
When I go on to do my email, I used to be able to just click on the screen and the drop down, I just picked the name. I had 2 email accounts. I just picked whatever one I want. And the only thing I had to do is type in my password. Now I have to type in my handle, Wayne Atwater, Comcast.net. I have to type that every time I go into it. Is there something I'm missing that it doesn't default to whatever one I've got?
What is your email client? What are you using for software?
Comcast.
Comcast. And Comcast itself, is the application that's asking you to enter your password every time?
Right, but even when I want to do an email, I have to type Wayne Atwater, Comcast.net, and I get tired of typing it.
Generally speaking, and this is my own opinion, I do not use ISP email accounts. And Comcast is an ISP. I never use their accounts. Why? Because a lot of people, one reason or another, end up changing ISP providers from time to time. And now you got to go through what Article 2 in Sanford's list is all about. Tell everybody, I'm no longer with this ISP and its email. I'm now with this ISP and its email. So I use email accounts from non-ISPs like Google, Gmail.
Well, when I sold my house, I got rid of all of Comcast equipment and closed everything down. And they told me that I can still continue to use the Wayne Atwater Comcast.net account.
Some ISPs will let you. Some will let you do it for like a year or two after you close down, and then they all of a sudden your account is dead and gone.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've had a client that was in that boat for about a year after he closed out of that ISP to change to a new ISP. He had access to that account, and then all of a sudden one day, gone.
Wow, okay. Is Gmail the best one to go to?
Gmail is a great one. Another one that I don't necessarily recommend, but I find it quite usable is Yahoo. I would stay away from AOL. I am not. Another one would be Outlook.com. That's on the web. It's
Is that a good one to?
That's
Is that a good one
Microsoft.
to use Outlook?
It's Microsoft's online version of Outlook. So if you have your standard user account linked to Microsoft, you have the availability of creating an Outlook.com account.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering whether they were going to cut it off at a certain date. They told me that I could use it forever, but I didn't believe him.
Yeah, company policies change all the time. So right now, that might be the current policy. Tomorrow, it could change.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. You think Outlook is the best one?
Not necessarily the best one. I would say Gmail is the better.
Oh, okay.
Outlook isn't too bad, and Yahoo may be a little bit below Outlook.com.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, where were we? I was going to share the screen. As soon as I get right there, share screen. This one. Okay. So this article is discussing changing an email address and common scenarios. Let's see what their scenario says. We all make a lot of mistakes. I don't know about doing that. I have mistakes doing this. Yes, no. Change your email, create a new account with the same provider, and then you could just start using that one, I think is an option. In my case, I used a different provider completely. So I believe this article, sorry, speaking without reading it all. Yeah, okay, so it kind of goes through the scenario similar to what I did. I used a newer email account from a new provider, and then I started telling everybody this is the one I'm going to be using. And that is I copied my contact list, and then I selectively sent emails to those people that it was important for them to be notified. The hard part is, and the part that takes the longest, is notifying your vendors that you work with that send you emails, whether regularly or irregularly. That is the one that takes the longest to filter out. So I would say you should keep the old one running for a month or a couple of months, figure a few cycles, if you will, of activity, and wait for incoming emails from people that you don't know, you didn't remember that's their primary email, and you need to contact them and have them change it. And a lot of times you'll run into that they want to send a verification email to your old account prior to authorizing the new account. That one gets a little sticky and hard if you shut down the old account. I will probably run into that later on this year. There's some stuff that I only do on an annual basis, and I don't know how to contact those organizations ahead of time, and I may have to run into those brick walls on that, but I'm hoping not. Okay, and you need to start using this new email program as your default program. Whether it's an Outlook-based or Gmail, it's a web-based or is it an app-based? I think it's a personal preference, and it's also up to whoever you're using.
What's the basis? I haven't heard of that.
Oh, aliases?
No, basis.
Basis.
You said 2 different bases that you could have.
Oh, did I say bases?
I
Yeah.
thought it was basis.
Okay, well, I guess what I meant is 2 different, was I talking about 2 different email accounts from 2 different sources? Maybe that's what I meant by the base.
That or you're thinking web-based versus app desktop.
Oh, yes,
client.
I'm sorry. Yes, please help me correct it. Thank you for catching me on that, Tim. I was thinking differently. Okay, so if you're using a web-based one, now it's one you address through your browser. and
Right.
meaning your browser controls the income in email and outgoing email. An application base would be something you'd load onto your phone or your tablet or even right into Windows, and that app is going to control the ins and outs of emails.
Okay.
So that's the two different ways in which emails are processed. You can either go with a browser-based web, which is web-based, or you can go with an app-based.
And your Comcast was web-based.
And now they moved over to an app.
No. If you use the old Outlook on the desktop, which is now an app, then that's the all-in-one program. It does all the receiving, storing on your system, and then sending out from your desktop. Whereas a web-based, like you said, goes through the browser, such as AOL, Yahoo, Outlook.com, or the old MSN program. Hotmail is another old one. Gmail is primarily web-based too. So most email programs are web-based. Only less than a dozen are app or desktop-based email clients.
Well, I've got like 8 different emails that I think they're all, I access them from my phone or my iPad or my, one of my PCs or whatever. So I can access it from anywhere.
Well, yeah, and usually that's web-based, not
They're all web-based
yeah.
because I don't store any of the stuff on the computer itself.
Right. But a lot of people, especially business type people, they would use Outlook itself on the desktop. They would use Thunderbird, and they were in a Linux world, Evolution, or several other various types of client-based email accounts, so that they would download and save all their emails in perpetuity in case something came up in their business activities and they need to search back through that stuff, find the actual emails, and be able to tell people, no, you're incorrect, this is what it was, or you're right and I apologize.
Well, I can go back a number of years on mine.
Most people don't keep it. I'm one that keeps it too. I can go back into 2014, but I can't go back further than that.
Again, this is as long as you maintain or retain ownerships of those emails.
That's right.
This discussion here is about people that want to move on from an email, one supplier or ISP to another. And that is, you want to shut down one of them because there's a reason for it.
Yes.
Got hacked.
That's one reason to take all the email off of your existing email before you shut it down.
Yeah.
Store it locally in a client.
Correct.
Or using a client.
Right.
Like Thunderbird. And your local store then can sit on hard drives with all of your archival backups or on a server. And then you'll have that. Then you're much freer to shut down, except for what they're mentioning in the article, where you have to notify people and make use of forwards and fetches. Fetches used to be called aggregation. In other words, you have push and you have pull from the old email to the new.
That's correct.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Sanford, you're going through this. You're going to shut down one.
I did. It's gone.
What did you do and how did you do it to get your old emails for business purposes to the new machine?
it wasn't that they needed to go to a new machine. I was shutting down that service, the
Yeah,
company
yeah.
I was getting the emails from. So procedurally, what I did is it was a POP3 email supplier or service. So I was running Thunderbird, and I would download periodically in my history in the past. I would always download the stuff and pull it off their servers, because there was a limited footprint that they'd allow you to have.
Right.
So therefore, meaning how many emails. I wasn't, unlike Wayne P. I wasn't able to keep 50 years of or 20 years of emails. I was only able to keep just a short period, maybe a month or a couple of months or two, because everything would fill up. And especially when Tim would send me, a couple of 5 megabyte files, and some whatever it might be, or my buddy would send me, some big photos, and they'd fill up my server or my storage at the other place too fast, and I'd be out of room, and then my emails would get bounced. Um, that had happened quite a bit, so that's the reason I moved on from that company. But what I had done is, I was downloading them periodically, and before I shut it down, I made sure I downloaded everything almost up to the day that they were going to turn it off, and I kept things current locally. While I was getting the downloads, I didn't keep everything. I got rid of, I would say, a good 75–80% of what came in, because it was stuff that was just frivolous, that did not affect day-to-day operations, if you will. But I did sort the emails out, and would go through and see who did I need to contact directly. Was it an insurance company? Was it a broker? Whatever brokering service? I would then contact them and tell them to change my default email, or I would go in. In a lot of cases, you just go in and make the changes yourself. You log in, you go to your personal profile at each one of these services, and you have to edit your default email address. In some cases, they would just take it and go. Other ones, they need to get a verification from both the old one and the new one. And in many of them, they just took it as the old one's no good, but we're still going to verify the new one.
Yes.
So that's the multiple scenarios that I came across with that. After that, I then went to the outgoing box, all the emails that I'd sent, and those I did a global select and a global forward to my, actually I forwarded them to my inbox. I moved all my sent ones to my inbox because this was a POP3 server. And then I downloaded them again in Thunderbird, taking a note that all those were sent emails.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the issue that's coming up right with me. I'm closing down one of the businesses.
Sure.
Okay, so I want to move. So I'm in Outlook 365. I'm on an Exchange server. That way I can get my emails anywhere I go. I want to close that account, but I want to save I actually want to send them, but I don't want to send everyone individually to a new account or an account that's already existing. Sort of like what you did. But I want to close out let's say, email 1 and move everything, including the stuff I've got in folders on email 1, over into email 2, and put it in a folder in email 2 saying old business.
And you want to do this through Outlook?
I'm in Outlook Solid.
Okay. Bert is more of I believe, Bert, are you there? Bert
Yeah,
would be
right,
more
there.
of, Bert is more of an Outlook guy than I am. Bert, can you advise him on this?
Well, I mean, basically, in terms of getting rid of the account completely, I mean, you can go
That's
between
easy. I
different
can shut it
folders,
down.
for instance. Pardon?
That getting rid of it completely is easy. I can just shut it down at the provider.
Right, but I mean, saving the data, another approach is to put it in a separate folder. In other words, take it out of the inbox, so to speak, that you've saved, and make a separate folder and stick it in there, but that account would still be active.
No, see, I want to lose the email charge for that account. That account doesn't need to be active anymore. I've got 7 other accounts.
Okay, so can you forward the emails? The problem is they're gonna come out at the same date.
They're going to come out as the current date.
Right, the date that you forwarded them.
Is there a mass way of doing it, or can I do it with? There used to be where you could save your PST folder.
Well, I mean, you can select a number of emails, but there's probably, a limit as to how many it'll let you do at a time.
There's well over 2,000 emails with attachments in this.
Understood. In terms of saving, another thing is perhaps saving some of the emails in like a Word document, but you'd have to do them separately.
Can I archive the folders of PST?
There is an archive capability. You can create an archive folder, but it's still going to be tied to that account.
I can't tie it to a new account.
Well, unless you can, I don't know. I haven't tried
The only
taking
way,
an archive and moving to a different account.
the only way I know what you're talking about, I think, Peter, is CCS had to get a new machine, so I took a copy of the .pst file and I imported it into a version of the desktop Outlook client, and it took it all in. But we had other issues, so it's not a real panacea, but it's doable.
So you exported it as a PST.
Yes. No, I didn't have to export it. You can take a copy of the PST file itself, and then you can import that into probably the Outlook 365 itself without the Exchange server.
It depends on what version of Outlook you're in as to whether it has a PST or it's all in the cloud.
Okay.
So on an Exchange server, would it be the PST, Bert?
Again, there's so many different versions.
See the
but the way to find out is to go into your Windows and look for the PST.
right.
You should have a folder there that'll be Windows documents and see if it's there or not.
In recent years, they changed from PST to another acronym, and I don't remember what it is.
OST, but that's more like an index that goes back to the cloud.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have to see which versions you're on. You could, you could save stuff. Like I said, you could put it in an archive and see if that archive could attach to a different account, but I'm not sure if it can.
Okay. something to try before I shut everything down over there.
Sure is. Okay. So, and the last step that I did is I made sure I exported a copy of my contact list from that email supplier and actually saved it as a CSV or a CSV file on my desktop. So then I could go through and look at the all the addresses and see if there was anybody I still need to retain and keep in my files somewhere, but pretty much a lot of them were defunct, so no reason to keep them.
Oh, one little hitch I may have.
Yes,
I'm accessing them all through the same client. They're all individual. You know, like when you're online, you might have different folders in a client for your different emails from different people, from different companies.
anyone want to comment on that?
I think you're talking like filtering. In other words, if say CCS, any emails that come in from CCS, you might have them automatically go to a folder called CCS.
No, it's different. I have, when I open up Outlook on Outlook 365 on the desktop,
Okay.
I've got, I want to say books. First one being my old PM groups at Meningen. Next one would be Pete at Meningen.com, my personal email for family stuff. Then I go into my 3 or 4 business sales and
Okay, so you have multiple accounts.
I have multiple accounts all filtering into the same desktop app.
Right. That's a
And I
headache.
want to remove one of the accounts and close that account, but I want to save the contents of that account into a different account.
Should be doable. It depends upon the characteristics of the accounts that you're using. See, the headache is even if your Outlook uses a .pst file as an example, all your accounts are, I think, in one PST file.
It may require a call to GoDaddy.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you got 5 accounts or 6 accounts, all of them are not separate PST files, I don't believe. They are one big, giant PST file.
Each one should be separate, would be separate.
Now, that depends, I think, on the version, because some versions didn't have that characteristic.
Outlook lets you, and the desktop version lets you run multiple accounts in the same app, and each one is separate.
If that's true, then it would be just finding the, if it has the PST file, finding the one for that account, and you can import that to another account.
Okay, so it's I just did a star search PST on the desktop, and I got a pop-up window saying Outlook files must be opened in Outlook.
Yeah, that's true, because that's what you're using anyhow. And
Yeah, because it's a database.
you should be able to take a specific PST file at Birchright for that one company you want to shut down, and then do an import into another account, the content of that PST.
Does that work?
What's PST mean?
It's a file type that is used exclusively by Outlook for storage of email.
Okay.
They're stored on the local machine unless you've got Outlook 365 or Outlook.com, which are up in the cloud.
Then
I
on your
have-
local machine, you would have only an index file.
Right.
I have Outlook or Office 365.
That's up in the cloud then. All you have on your local machine is a small index file of all your emails.
And it's actually easier to do migration to a new machine if it's all up in the cloud, because that will sync very easily.
Oh.
But if you have to move to a new account, the cloud is arguably a bit more of a pain.
Mm-hmm. I've never used Outlook.
Now, personally, I have a desktop client that uses a different file system. And that's a Linux client called ClauseMail, and it's much more like the old Unix clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Thunderbird has a profile which you can migrate from machine to machine. But if you change providers and make a new account, then you have to go through all these processes.
Now, what do? Put Thunderbird on your machine? It's a separate file, and it does a
Thunderbird is a program, and it keeps a profile which contains mailboxes. And the mailboxes can be individually exported, which is one of its strong points. Thunderbird also works both on Windows and on Linux, and I believe it works on Mac, does it?
I'm not sure about the Mac.
Thunderbird.
But Thunderbird is a very flexible email client. However, it does not provide email services by itself.
Yeah, basically it works like the old Outlook on the desktop, where you download from your ISP your emails that come in probably on a daily basis. And then if you want to, you can either leave the email messages up there, or you can have them auto delete after so many days, or you can have them deleted as soon as they're downloaded to your local machine.
And the advantage there is that if you do change providers, you have local copies of everything up to that point. And all you've got to do is make sure that your contacts all get synced up with the new email, and any verification they need to do gets done.
Is there any way to block certain emails so they nuisance emails that come in every month or every week?
There are a couple of ways. You can block the sender, but that's not very effective against spam.
Mm-hmm.
You can direct these messages to a spam or a junk mail folder. You can keep separate spam and junk mail. Spam is stuff that's pre-screened, and you might have to look through it sometimes for stuff that's actually important. Junk mail is what it says. It's strictly junk. So there are ways of classifying and directing your mail and making rules. And the rules can be based on the sender. They can be based on the subject line. They can be based on things about content.
And most email clients, they allow you to put a check mark in front of an email that you say is spam. And then up in the top edge area, there's an icon that says spam. You click on that, and any of those emails will go into the spam folder, which Bob mentioned you have to go through periodically, see if there's any good emails that got there by accident, put them in your inbox, but the rest of it you can delete periodically.
Gotcha.
Just like trash mail, where you've read it, you're done with it, you put it in, you delete it, and it goes into the trash folder, and periodically you got to dump that too.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh. I'm looking at where the file is, where the files are, and they're on my OneDrive in Outlook files.
They're
Well,
on one. They're on
Just-
OneDrive.
They're on
Just so you
OneDrive in
know,
what?
just so you know, I poked into my machine, and if you went to Windows folder, under users, under your name, under app data, under local, under Microsoft, under Outlook, you would see the various Outlook files, most of which show up in mine as OSTs now.
Windows users.
Okay, Windows users, your whatever user your name is,
It's
Okay.
app data,
App
Local.
data.
it's a hidden folder.
Local.
app data, local, Microsoft, Outlook. That's where the files are, but you can tell by the size of the files if there's stuff there for you or not, but it doesn't mean you can open it.
Well, and the other thing,
I don't have.
the other thing there is there's a setting in Windows, especially 11, whereby it wants to sync a lot of your document folders and some other folders up to one cloud. And it's something that you can turn off if that's not what you want.
Well, but it's, again, newer versions of Outlook are in the cloud. That's not the same thing you're talking about, though. Do you see that folder, Pete?
Yeah, I've got NST and OST files.
Yeah, NST is the new format that replaced PST. But I don't know what the characteristics of NST.
If you look at the file sizes, you can get some hint about what they are.
Okay, the one is 130,000 kilobytes.
Yeah, I've got a couple like that.
And then one at 50,000 kilobytes and two at 16,000 kilobytes.
Yeah,
But neither of the ones in here are the ones I'm looking to migrate.
Right. But so, a lot of things that are in OneDrive are duplicated in your desktop anyway. And that's what this is.
Yeah.
I don't know that this helps you because, again, there's so many different versions now that they put in for security reasons.
Right.
That it's harder to be able to do that individually without going through the Outlook program. But that's where the data's kept.
And again, if you had been using something like Thunderbird all this time, the migration would be a simple matter of going through profiles. Microsoft has complicated matters a bit.
as usual. Okay, have we covered this subject thoroughly? To the point where we cleaned our fingernails with it.
It is telling me I need to talk to GoDaddy.
That's right.
Maybe you should.
another one in there, it's by the same author, is I leave my computer always on. Am I likely to be hacked? Because
Okay.
there's a lot of discussion that pops up from time to time in various groups about leaving the computer on or shutting it down every day.
Okay. Okay, let's see what they have to say here before I flip this. Close that. Okay, so what do they have to say? Sorry if you hear the TV. Sounds like my wife has got that blaring. Can you guys hear the TV going off in the background like sirens?
Periodically.
Oh, I could go and turn down her TV.
It's like my typing when I had the loud keyboard.
I'm sorry, my wife is in the other room and has it cranking a little loud. Okay, get behind the router. What is that? Wait, we're on this. If I leave my computers always on, am I more likely to be hacked?
In general, wait a minute, you just passed it. In general, no. But there are
Very-
exceptions.
Yes. So let's see what their exceptions are. So in general, no, leaving your PC on will not make it more vulnerable than leaving it off. I would say most of it has to do with where you go, meaning the sites you go to, than anything. That's when you have a likelihood of being, or a phishing exercise, or if you accepted a phishing email or something, that too. But your device should not be hacked just by leaving it on.
As long as your security is up to date, you should
That's
be
right.
okay. And that includes your router security.
Right.
And most people do not update their routers. They don't know how to. And if they rent them, usually it's the rental company that does the updating anyhow.
Well, let's talk about, you said most people, but let's solicit our group here. I currently can't see everybody, but let me see. Let me change this. Maybe I can see more. There we go. So can I see a show of physical hands of those of you that know how to IP address into your router and make sure it's up to date? Okay, so we got one out of the group. We have two people that don't. Three people. Wayne, did you have your hand up or no? I didn't see.
No, it was not up.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3 people. Oh, yeah, everyone can put their hands down. So we got 3 people that don't necessarily know how to get into their router to see if it's up to date. And would anyone like to quickly discuss that, or is this a subject for a later date?
That's the subject for a later date.
Anyone else want to concur on that?
The one thing I can tell you is if you rent, for example, if you have a Comcast modem or a Fios modem, you can find out which firmware version you have, but you don't have any control over updating it.
That is correct, and I think that's a good point to be made to our in our discussion here. Is again, if you rent one, don't even worry about it because somebody else is managing it. If you physically own your router, then you are responsible for its actions, inactions, its safety, its maintenance, its power, its everything.
Yeah, there you should be checking for firmware updates, and if there are separate security updates, check for them.
Correct.
And that means you need to know how to get into your router.
You should also be, and it may be also advisable that you know that you should log into your router and see if there is an auto update feature that's in there. This way, you don't have to go and manage it all the time. Just periodically, every X number of months, go in there and see, is it doing its thing? It should tell you the last time it was updated. It'll tell you right in there and give you a date and time that it did it. If it's something relatively current, you're good. You can sleep better at night.
Well,
Or you could go in every month or so when you're doing your other updates and just add this to the list as a punch list item.
Yeah, as a punch list item, just see, is this something you need to go and check? Tim, go ahead.
it should also be mentioned for people's edification, whether you're renting a router modem or you own your own. The average life of firmware updates is only about 5 years. So after 5 years, maybe by the 6th year, you've got to consider going out and getting a new router to replace that one. The old one can be used as an access point to expand the range of your Wi-Fi signals within your home.
And that is a perfect secondary use of it,
Yes.
is to incorporate it into your network, make it an access point, and whether it's an automated feature that you can do or something you have to manually do, but just rededicate it and don't make it your primary router, just make it an access point. And you can extend its life for a long, long time, many, many years.
Yes.
To further that, that is exactly what I had done. I had obtained I have one router and I obtained another one, and I wound up setting it up as a mesh network in my house to expand my network further so that I was able to utilize and be able to capture the signal from my Blink security cameras that I installed on the exterior of my house. Because my house being a log ranch, it was hard for the signal to get from the inside of the house all the way down to the other end, out through a steel door and out through an aluminum garage door to be able to get to the security cameras. So I wound up doing a daisy chain, and I set up a mesh network and moved the router much closer. And then I also have a D-Link camera that acts as a hotspot or also as an access point. So I had that access the mesh network, which extended my signal just a little bit further, maybe another 10 more feet, which is perfect. And now I got great signal everywhere. You have to be creative, and it's a good thing to do. So if you have an old one laying around, that's a good purpose for an old router. Another purpose that I would recommend, if it's one you don't want to use, but you don't need to use it, but it was your active router, and now it's your inactive router, just archive it the way it is. Don't reset it, just archive it the way it is, so it has all the settings that you have to access your network, that is your SSID and your passwords to get in, maybe your mapping information you might have. Just have this sit as an archive, as a standby unit, so that when your primary router breaks and doesn't work, you can unplug the old one and plug this one in and be up and running in no time. Just make sure you update the firmware after you do that. Sorry for jumping around, but that's what I recommend about an old router. I don't know if anyone wants to add in on that function there. So one of the things they say here is, yes, make sure your router's updated. And let me change this for you. Your firewall's good. So leaving your machine on at night is actually a good thing, because your computer will do a lot of housekeeping at night. That is, after midnight, patches might be downloaded, updates will be done, reboots could happen automatically. Could, I didn't say will, but could happen automatically. Looks like Dropbox and OneDrive do some syncing. You could get syncing functions occurring for you in the background, syncing of applications, syncing of data. Um, what else they tell you in here? They don't tell you a lot.
Well, he was mostly answering one of the pet questions for people who about 50% say they will shut down their machine every single day, and other people leave it on 24/7. And what are the reasons for doing one or the other? It used to be the switches and how the power supplies and motherboards work together. Um, you frequently had breakdown of the off-on switches that had to be replaced. Sometimes it affected the power supply and possibly the motherboard. That was long, long ago. Modern machines that it's the on-off button goes through the motherboard, and it's not a big deal. You can do either one, but as you just brought out, uh, Windows and I think Mac does too. I'm not sure about Linux. They end up doing a lot of maintenance, housekeeping, sometimes updating of the OS operating system, not your application software.
Yes. I'll also add to that, as Ted said, the olden days, you used to physically throw a switch that was right at your power supply. And that function of throwing the switch itself sent a lot of surges through the whole system, and you had a mechanical part that could fail. Nowadays, standalone PCs, this is not talking laptops, but standalone PCs usually have the power running on them even when it's turned off. They have a small, minuscule amount of juice that's still running through the motherboard and through the USB ports in a lot of cases, so you can do charging when the machine is turned off. There's usually power running in there. So the concept of turning it off really, all you're doing is that you powered it down to an extremely low level state that it's not doing anything. And then when you push the button for it to turn on, you're telling it to ramp everything all back up and possibly reload the OS and possibly reload everything, or just wake up from a sleep or hibernation state.
I do mine in sleep. I set mine in sleep all the time.
Okay, which is a
And
very
And that's real easy because when you turn it on or you just click the mouse or touch the space key, it comes on and you don't have to worry about it booting up.
There you go. And then when you do that, you do want to make sure periodically you just do a reboot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Could be every week or every other week or whatever you feel comfortable that you need to do that. But you do want to do, especially in Windows, you
Yep.
do need to do a reboot on there. Often Windows will do an update and automatically do that for you. How
Right.
nice. I do have a server at home that runs 24/7, 365, more or less. But I do shut it down on occasions. That one, no problems having it up and running. It never has gotten hacked to my knowledge. Um, and that's basically been running like that for, 7, 8 years, 10 years. I really don't know how, I don't even remember when I started this box. So it's probably 10 years old by now, and it's been running the whole time. So it doesn't affect it. I made sure that particular box had the right amount of power and it doesn't suck too much juice, but it has enough to run all my 41 terabytes of storage. I'm sorry, I had to chuckle. It's But anyways, it has no problem keeping up with the number of drives. I think I got 8 drives in that particular box or something.
I think you started that box before I came to Hawaii, which was in 14.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did. That's the exact same box. It's a Lenovo PC. It's running a Xeon Pentium processor. which is made to be up and running the whole time, runs great. I love it. And as a matter of fact, today I was just doing my monthly backups of my whole system, where I back it all up locally to multiple drives, and I do that every month. But that's me. So, is there other people in the group here? I didn't see. Did I poll whether I did not poll? I should ask how many people here leave. It could be even one machine on 24/7. Anybody? Just two of us.
Just
Okay.
sleep mode.
Okay.
Sleep mode.
Well,
I've got one running 24/7.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3 people, 1, 2, 3, 4 people that leave a machine. It doesn't matter. I don't care what it is. I actually leave a couple of machines that run all the time, but they, I have that server and I have one other PC that runs all the time. And most of my other ones, I turn them off because I don't need them, and I'll turn them on when I need them for a specific reason. And that includes laptops. I don't leave my laptop running 24/7. I just don't need it.
Here's a question.
Yes, Wayne.
As the backup media, is 2 terabytes the limit for what the sector, something about the sector of the drive?
Is there a 2 terabyte limit for a sector size?
No. If you're backing up a machine,
Yeah.
they say 2 terabytes is the limit for something with respect to the sectors on the drive, or I don't remember the details.
I believe, Wayne, I don't know where you're pulling that information from about sector or anything, but I do remember Windows Server version 2, which is the one I'm running, had a 2 terabyte limit on storage, as well as a 2 terabyte limit on backing up. That's the only place I remember that 2 terabyte number from. Anyone else clarify that?
Because when I go over to Walmart to buy a backup, I always only buy 2 terabytes.
No, it's okay to buy 4 terabyte backup drives. It's just no one file can be that big, and a block of data that you're backing up at any given moment, you should probably try to keep under a terabyte.
So you can put multiple backups on one drive?
Oh yeah, I do it all the time. I've got 4 terabyte size drives.
I've got multiple machines on backup drives that are like 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte in size. Since I have multiple machines, I have a folder per machine, and then the minimum backups I want to keep is 3 backups per machine. However, some people, every backup they want to keep.
Yeah,
So,
I think 3 is, I had heard one time a man that was in charge of Sexton food computers, he said you always need 3.
That's
And he
the
said
minimum. That's the minimum.
You have 3 max and you keep rotating them.
Yeah.
right. So I have 3 8 terabyte drives that I use for backups, Wayne. 3 of them. I'm sorry, 8 terabytes. There's no limit on the 2. There's 8. So I could, and I could go bigger from there. I could go up to a 10.
So I would need 3 2 terabyte drives for my backups.
The first thing you need to know is how much data you need to back up. How big are the drives? Then you take that and exponentially grow it. So if let's say for conversation, your main hard drive is 1 terabyte in size, and you want to back that up in its entirety, and you want to keep 3 or 4 months, that's 1 terabyte times 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's just a quick example. That would mean you'd want to buy a 4 terabyte drive, and I would limit yourself to that. I'd go bigger. Always go.
Right. but I don't have any sector problems getting the bigger drives.
No, not sectors. Forget about that. You don't need to worry about that.
What do? You buy the biggest one that's on sale?
Well, I go to Costco. They usually have them right there and what I need. So, um, and whatever they have on sale or, at the time is what I'll purchase. I mean, they were selling these 8 terabyte drives for $130. That's pretty darn good price for a
Yeah.
SIG.
Wow.
Now, myself, I like to rely on well-known brands because I will only have a certain number of chances to recover if I have anything happen to my system. And I want to give myself the best chance of my backups still being good. I have them verified, and I have them on media I can trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your backup program must verify whatever it puts down, especially if it's a system image.
Wayne, are you not doing regular backups now?
No, I haven't done it for a while.
Well, that's something you should probably do by this weekend.
Yeah.
Put it on your to-do list and don't wait, because it's when you don't do it, stuff happens. That's right. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it could happen tonight. The moment you turn off your machine and somehow your system got hacked and you need a backup. So you need backup software with recovery software. You need the media it's to go to, meaning the hard drive.
Yep.
And you need to practice it. Put it through its paces, do a backup. I would then get a dummy hard drive and do a restore, make sure it works. Or
What drive? What's a restore?
Like a dummy or a drive that you don't mind putting data on that you don't really care about. I mean, just going through the practice so you know how to do a backup and a restore.
I got you. Okay.
Okay, or you could just do a single file recovery and see if that works, then you'll feel a little more confident. If you need to create a recovery key, which you probably should do for Windows, and a recovery key for the software you're going to use, might give you a boot drive or something to recover from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've talked about this whole process before, and I know that Tim has articles on the FYIs on how to do full system backups and restores. And
I've been backing up the documents file and the desktop.
Yeah, but you've probably only been doing copies, which are not a backup.
What's that?
Data backups are actually more important than system backups nowadays, because when you restore the system, you might be able to rebuild the system just as quickly as long as you have all your software keys. And then it's a matter of your own personal data being added back. So your personal data is the most important thing you're backing up these days.
Yeah, right.
And that data may exist in several folders in Windows.
Mm-hmm.
It may be in documents, it may be in pictures, it may be in videos for some things,
Mm-hmm.
and it may be in other folders you have created.
Mm-hmm.
If this were Linux, I'd say just your user data or your home directory.
Mm-hmm.
But Windows doesn't do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Windows has a folder called users under your username, but it contains a lot of stuff you don't need to back up.
With the way my backups are, I can just take the USB and plug it in another machine and get the data in that I want and proceed.
Yeah, but you do have to be able to restore the Windows operating system itself. So
yeah, there's no way to do that from Microsoft directly.
You can reinstall, but then you have to rebuild everything you set up. All your settings, all your programs have to be reinstalled.
Yeah, right.
Again, it isn't like Linux where you have just a single source for almost all of your software, and all you do is import a checkmark file and run it, and you're back up and running.
Uh-huh.
Windows doesn't do it that way
See,
unless you use 9.8 or something like that.
with a system backup, depending on how much you have to back up in the first place, I would say on average, my backup with a verification takes about 45 minutes. If I have to restore because my system is hosed, I can have my system back up and running within 45 minutes. Try doing that by reinstalling Microsoft Windows, reinstalling and downloading all your application programs, and then putting your copy of your data files back on the system, getting it all configured. If you can get that done in a day, you've done a damn good job. It usually takes longer.
Yeah, and in my case with modern capable processors, it's maybe 20 minutes to back up and verify, and the same to verify and restore.
Now, are you talking about an image?
Yes.
Yes, this would be a system image.
System
I
image.
say in addition to that, you'll probably want more frequent backups of important data.
Yes.
Right.
In other words, the data, how you're backing it up now, you don't stop that. You just have periodic, like once a month, system backups to which you can restore, easily update any Microsoft updates and any program application updates, and put your most current copy of your data files back on, and you're done within probably no more than a couple hours.
Now, don't they have a sector in the hard drive that is a image of the system that
No.
you can?
No, not any longer.
That used to be true, but it's not really there anymore. And besides that, too, let's say that your machine was bought 4 years ago. Okay, a little bit has changed in 4 years just in Windows alone. And that image that was out there is only the operating system. So you would have to reinstall that. You would have massive update you've got to do to the operating system. You still have to download and install all your application programs, then put your copy of the data on and get everything configured back as close as you can get to the way it was before everything went bad.
Can I use the Windows backup that comes with Windows?
Yes, you can, but there's no verification. So you're taking a gamble that the backup is good or not, or you got to know how to manually verify that backup. And so really, you want almost any other backup program out there. I use Macaron Reflect. I would also recommend EasyS to do backup.
Yep.
Those two, I would say, are the best. You will need a small flash drive. When I say small, somewhere 2 gigs or even less, a flash drive to create a rescue drive. And that's because you are not getting physical media anymore. You're downloading the program right off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you want something you can boot if Windows won't.
Yeah, if your hard drive physically dies, you got to replace the drive first. Then you got to take that rescue media, plug it in. It's the only operating system out there, so the system will boot up into it. You have your backup drive plugged in also, and select the last backup you did, restore it, then take your data that you've been backing up separately and put a fresh copy of that back on. And then I would check for any OS updates and any program updates since that backup was done.
Yeah, that'll
Oh.
work.
Okay. Thank you.
My God, that was a lot of discussion there on this stuff.
I agree.
Yeah. We could have had a whole presentation on
Yes,
backup and
Yes, we
restore.
could.
Backup
right.
and restore,
We-
or about the router stuff and stuff like that. Shit.
Okay, we've run out of time. We didn't necessarily cover a lot of ground, but we did cover a lot of ground. Bert needs his finger up. He has
Yeah.
an announcement that we are still looking for Region 3. We're looking for somebody to cover Region 3. Anyone want to step up to the plate? We still looking for somebody. Bert, what'd you want to add?
I was just gonna go back to Pete a second, because
Yeah.
the simplest solution for your situation is open Outlook with two accounts in, the one you don't want and the one where you want to put the data. Open a folder in the one you want to keep, the account you want to keep, and then copy the stuff from one account to the other just by dragging it in Outlook from one folder to the new folder you created, which is going to be your account data. Now it'll change the dates to be the current date you do it, but other than that, you should be able to get a group of items and drag it over.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. I can at least
It'll
try
be
that.
the simplest. And then when you got everything moved over, you can delete the account you don't want.
Okay, thank you, Bert.
Okay, I will close out this meeting tonight. If anyone has any last minute things. Nope. All right, then we will see everybody next month in December. Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay.